time
That's
for
great.
World War III. Watch. Let's just face it, it's already started. I'm here with Garland Nixon. We're going to talk about the happenings in Ukraine since Trump has gotten into office, some of the hits and misses, but we are getting a report right away in the last 24 hours. I've seen BBC is reporting that we now know, and you guys knew this, we knew this, everybody watching knew this, but this has been confirmed by BBC now that 90,000 Russian troops have died in the Ukraine war, whereas Ukraine has suffered nearly 1 million losses. And now we're getting a report from Jim Ferguson that there is an audit that is being demanded by Trump. And he's saying this: Trump calls for full audit of Ukraine funding. Donald Trump has demanded a complete audit of the billions sent to Ukraine. And the globalists, including Biden, must be terrified of what might emerge. For too long, Americans have been kept in the dark about where their hard-earned tax dollars are going. And then this audit could uncover shocking truths about corruption, mismanagement, and backdoor deals that serve the elite, not the people. Transparency is coming, and the globalist agenda is shaking. Buckle up. Is this too good to be true, or is this actually happening? Garland Nixon, please tell us, what are your thoughts on this audit? Is this a real deal? Is this happening?
I don't know. I'm wary because I do know that intelligence uses things like this, like Ukraine, to launder weapons to, like, some of their proxies around the world. They use it to launder, money for black operations around the world. So I'm sure that whatever's found that the CIA was doing crooked won't be let out. But there, you got to ask yourself, we're sending money. Here's something that's obvious. So they're like, hey, we're at war with the Russians, and therefore we need money. So here's another 100 billion. Okay, fair enough. Well, I oppose all of that stuff, so they get their money. Explain this to me. Old Sam Bankman-Fried had this crooked crypto company, right? With like these back doors for money to disappear and all this stuff. Okay,
that's right.
So you're sending money to Kiev for supposedly buying weapons, and they decided to invest in crypto. What the hell was the Kiev regime doing, putting money in crypto?
Yeah.
And we didn't say, hey, we sent you this to buy tanks and you're buying crypto. Something's wrong with that. They're like, no, Bitcoin's going to do great in the long run. We're investing for our old age. Really? It's absurd. Something's crooked there. That money went in. That was, I think, a CIA operation anyway. So you got so many things going there. Let's even bring up the bio research labs.
Oh my gosh. The labs, Burisma, the whole bit. It's all there. It's all, by the way, this is the stuff that was in Hunter Biden's laptop that everybody coordinated not to let people know in time for the 2020 election, and then bragged about it. Washington Post, New York Times, bragging about not letting the people know that this information was in that laptop. It wasn't Russian disinformation. It was legit. And it showed the paper trail and the timeline, the 2014 of setting up these labs through the Burisma. And it was the coordination with whether Hunter Biden on these boards. And we knew that was coordinated with the pharma companies. And it's not a coincidence, Garland. I know, we reported this last week, and I'm sure you were covering this as well, where we saw the Fauci preemptive pardon, which dates back to 2014, along with Hunter Biden, 2014. An 11-year clock on a preemptive pardon. How interesting. Seems that interesting that the mainstream media doesn't want to report that part, but we're reporting it. It's all part of this, right? Is all that going to be part of this apparent audit that might happen and expose that?
Well, I just think the CIA stuff, they can't, because, one of the things they left out is on the board with Hunter Biden was a guy named Cofer Black, former assistant director for the CIA, right? Who else went on the board? The guy right now, his name is Amos Hochstein. Amos Hochstein is the so-called Biden's so-called envoy to Israel, right? Who might I add, a former tank commander for the IDF, right? But when the U.S. overthrew the government of Ukraine, Amos Hochstein worked for the State Department. He quit his job and then went and got on the board, quit the State Department and got on the board of Naftogaz, which is the official gas company of the Ukrainian government. Stayed there for a couple of years, left, and then Joe Biden hired him with a specific job. You know what that was?
What was it?
Dealing with Nord Stream. Look it up. And then Nord Stream blew. Hochstein, anywhere there's criminal activity and crooked, shisty pockets to be filled, you'll find Amos Hochstein. But bottom line is, again, what does that tell you? That it was all a money laundering, criminal, crooked operation. There was an article a while back, and it said that the CIA, I got to find that article. It literally said in the article that the CIA director went to Ukraine to talk about, to talk to Zelensky about all of the, basically the theft. And basically, if you read the article, it's basically, they said, hey, you're peeling a little too much on the top, off the top, buddy. You know, you go ahead and get your fair share, but don't steal all of it. I mean, literally, there was an article in mainstream news that was easily interpreted as the CIA just went there and says, come on, you know, we understand you got to eat. Everybody's going to get theirs, but you're taking this thing a little too far. So it was all so much criminal activity. I think that they got you know, Zelensky, I think his days are numbered because he knows too much.
Yeah.
And Zelensky's way out is easy. All he has to do is call the Trump administration or Putin and say, look, I got everything. I know everything. And if you'll guarantee my safety, I will give you tell you everything you need to know, because Zelensky knows it all. Otherwise, Zelensky's done. He's done. He's toast. He's finished. But I don't know, because the history of the regime change operation of the U.S. is to overthrow a country and then use that country as a base of operations for all kinds of criminal activity, money laundering, drug movement, all kinds of crimes around the world. Do they really want to open that can of worms? I don't know. But if they did look into it, the amount of criminality would be, you know, limitless. You know, most people don't know this. The FBI, after U.S. overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014, the FBI, the Comey, they go to Ukraine and open an office called NABU. They're still there, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, right? But for some reason, they couldn't find any corruption around Hunter Biden. They couldn't find any corruption around, you know what I mean? It's an anti-corruption bureau. What it was a way to smite their enemies. It was a way, and out of that anti-corruption bureau came a lot of this Russiagate stuff back in the 2016, 2017. It was just a Democratic Party operation that the FBI, which is also a criminal organization. Might I add one last thing about the FBI? I got to say this. I always say the most obvious criminal case, if I was investigator, would be the Hunter Biden laptop case, for this reason. How easy is this? Tell me how easy this criminal case is. December 2019, the FBI go to and they pick up Hunter Biden's laptop. This guy calls them and says, I got his laptop, come get it. He has to call them twice. Eventually they come get it, right? Okay. December 2019. Let's see. 10 months later, in October, the FBI comes out and they said, now remember, 10 months ago, they picked up the Hunter Biden laptop. So they've had it. No doubt they've examined it. They know what's in it, right? 10 months later, just before the election, they go to Twitter and Facebook and the media behind all of our backs. We didn't know it. And the FBI says, look, we think the Russians are going to come out with this story about a Hunter Biden laptop. It's a lie. It's a Russian disinformation program. And not only do you need to censor it, we'll be happy to help you censor it. But they had that laptop for 10 months. They knew beyond a reasonable doubt, to a moral certainty, that it wasn't Russian disinformation because they had it for 10 months. And the only reason they got it because the guy called them and asked them to get it and told them, I got it. I called Hunter Biden. He won't come get it. I think I'm going to get in trouble. Come get it. And they said, oh, we think it's Russian disinformation.
Wow.
They knew. They absolutely lied weeks before the election, and they censored it. That is the easiest case of election interference that you'll ever make. Everybody that was involved with doing that has to be charged. You couldn't claim. What are they going to claim? We didn't know. Well, we weren't sure. We thought it might be Russian disinformation, even though we had it for 10 months and examined the damn thing and knew everything that was in it. It is the easiest case. They have to plea out. Anybody charged, there's not even a defense for that.
No, there's no defense. And I think that the new approach to doing these horrible things today's day, because there's a paper trail of everything, I think one of the techniques is to do things out in the open and then say it out loud and brag about it, which is part of the game to make us go, well, maybe it wasn't So they're not presenting like they did anything wrong. You have the the Washington Post. You got people that are out loud. They're championing the fact that this information was legit, and we kept it from the American people because we're all in this together, Garland. We all have to do whatever we can to stop this monster from getting into office again, and whatever it takes. If it means suspecting some information is fake when we know it's real, if it means keep looking at the calendar and saying we just have to get through election day, and then we can figure out what it is, or we can then release it, to champion that approach to news and justice and right and wrong, and to say no, that was the right correct move, and to be to be proud of that. That's the problem. And I don't. So again, like, no one is being charged for this. No one is having to account for this. They're just saying, yeah, we committed a crime, but it was a crime on behalf of the people of the planet, and we were saving the planet from a comet that was coming to kill everyone. And you got to do whatever you got to do to stop it for the greater good. I think that's the line I remember, Garland. It's for the greater good. So you can break the law for the greater good and then brag about it after.
You just wonder. One of the things that I've thought here, to be quite frank, look, if Trump tried to do some of the things that he's doing without, I'm not going to use the word permission, support, or whatever from some very powerful people, he wouldn't live a day. I feel like this. When I saw all the tech bros, there's like $1.5 trillion worth of tech bros in line sitting in front of them. I saw all this power, right? I had this feeling, and that is, and I don't know what you think about it. I had heard Trump say, "Oh my God, they're going to do I'm afraid they're going to start World War. There'll be a nuclear war. Everything will be obliterated." I heard Elon Musk say, "These people are crazy. They're going to start a nuclear war. We're all going to die." Right? Okay, for you and I, that's one thing. If you're a billionaire, they're like, "Crap, the world is our playground. We can do anything we want. We love it. We're frolicking around the world doing anything we want, and we're going to lose it all. They're going to have a nuclear war." I kind of have a feeling that perhaps the Biden team stepped over the line and freaked out some really, really powerful people. And these really powerful people got together and said, "To hell with this. We don't mind going around the world stealing all kind of stuff and oppressing our people and stuff like that. Hey, we're all for that. But you stepped over the line now. They're supposed to die, not us." I feel like, and think about this. One night, we're in the weekend, and Biden's like, "We must go to war with China. We must stop Taiwan, Russia, Putin, fire more missiles into Ukraine." And we're like, Jesus, yeah, what the hell? This guy's a madman. We're going to die in a nuclear war. And then Monday, Trump goes in and he's like, "Hey, I'm calling China. Hey, Xi, what's happening, dude? Hey, we're going to make peace in the world. All right, I'm out. Putin, hey, great to talk to you, old buddy. Peace. I'm all for peace."
Yeah,
I feel like very, very, very powerful people. I have often talked about it. People don't understand this. There are various factions of the ruling elite. Like during feudalism, various families of nobilities would fight it out, right?
Yeah.
That there's factions. Clearly, the tech bro is a different faction of the ruling elite than, say, the people that run ExxonMobil or Wall Street. These are all factions of the ruling elite, but they battle it out, right? I feel like the tech bros came in, that faction of the ruling elite, and said, "We got unlimited money. We got to stop this crap. We're going to do things differently." I'm not saying it's going to be good, but I find it hard to believe that a president would be able to reverse course just like that. And let me add you this. So Trump comes in and he says, "I'm calling Putin." I haven't heard anything from Congress members saying, "Don't do it. He can't do that." Not really. How about China? He calls the Xi. 1 minute we've got to sail through the Taiwan Straits every 5 minutes and piss the Chinese off. Spy planes flying all around the edge of China. We're building bases in the Philippines. We got to go to war with China. And the next day he's calling them saying, "Hey, let's chill out, China. Let's be friends." I just have a feeling that very, very powerful people decided we need to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And that we may not know what their scheme is, but I think the Biden team scared the bejesus out of them. And I'll put it like this. Over the course of history, you see various power factions will go into ascendancy. And this particular group will be in power in Washington, D.C. for 20 years or 30 years. And then that group, it may be the oil people being, the Wall Street people, they'll be in. And I think the neocon group, that their time of ascendancy is gone. And now that the tech bros have ascended, and that they're going to be the ones that guide the ship for a while, because we don't guide the ship, right? It's a pirate ship for sure. It's not a luxury liner. It's a pirate ship, but we don't get to guide it. But I just feel like there's a different faction of the ruling elite, and you can see them. It's the tech bros. It was right in front of our face.
Yeah. No, I think you're onto something there, Garland. It's the people behind the scenes that they're big game of chess, and I think people say that Trump is playing a 60 chess at this. They keep upping the number. He's playing 3D now, 4D now, 5D now, 60. But at the end of the day, I do think you're right. There's the people behind the scenes that have to then pick and choose their battles, cut their losses, and then come up with a new game plan. And using Trump as that vehicle for that game plan, and we can't possibly know all of it right now, so we're just gonna have to keep looking at it and move forward. But I want to bring up this NATO thing.
Can I say one last thing about that? One last quick thing, and then you can bring that up.
Yeah.
And I think that China probably had this deep seek thing for a while. Come on, a couple weeks after Trump comes to power, and what has it been, a week? And they released this deep seek thing that just blows away everything in tech. I think it was a power move by them. I think they had it. And they waited to Trump to they weren't going to do it during the Biden administration. They waited till the new president came in. They played a power move. Wham, we want you to show. And think about this. Trump comes in and he's got the tech bros all around him. So China can, and they knew it. They knew it. Everything that was going to happen. Okay. And then they released this a week and a half after Trump takes power. It was a power move. It was to let the tech bros know. No, look, guys, we understand that there's a new sheriff in town and you guys are ruling things, but we want to let you know we're big players here. You're going to have to deal with us. You're not going to be able to run over us and stomp us around. We are players in this game and power players. So I think that deep seek thing was a power move, kind of not a punch to the gut, but a little bit of elbow to the tech bros, just to remind them, we're here, man. Don't forget how much power we got. A bargain with us, work with us. Don't do like the Biden administration and try to run over us. What do you think?
I think you're right. It's a power move, and you got a big summer blockbuster. You release it in the summer. You don't release it in January, right?
A week after Trump comes to power, that ain't an accident.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
Timing.
It's everything. I'm throwing this comment up because this is I wanted to just mention the NATO part of things. Wishigo says NATO, as we all agree, should have been abolished in the early 90s. Thank you for that, Wishigo. And we all agree on that. The question is, does Trump agree on that? And your friend Scott Ritter, I'd love to have him on one time. That would be great. He's always so thoughtful about his critique, and he definitely calls out Trump when he needs to be called out, and then he champions him when he does something right. I do believe that Scott Ritter thinks that Trump fully believes that NATO needs to be dissolved immediately. If that's the case, I hope it's the case. Is this a step in that direction? Let's hear a clip, just a little bit of Scott Ritter's take on what's happening now since that audit, that he's asking for this audit on Ukraine, and that this is actually the end of NATO. Are we heading in that direction? Let's hear his take, and then I want your thoughts.
I just told you he changed the game. Now, why is it crazy? Expansion compared to what? I'm not defending what Trump's doing. I'm not. I'm actually condemning this. But I'm just trying to say that you said, is Trump's election a game changer?
Yeah.
Yes, the game is completely different. We are now going to be expanding. We're going to be seizing Greenland. We're going to be seizing the Panama Canal. We're going to be creating Fortress America. That's Trump's vision. And in order to make Fortress America, we have to disengage from, regions that have caused us nothing but problems. Trump doesn't want to be part of NATO anymore because NATO is a useless entity that only brings us harm and embarrassment. NATO costs us money that we don't need to be spending. And Trump believes that Russia is not a threat to Europe. Europe is a threat to Russia. And that the best way to equalize this and bring it in is to bring it into the conflict in Ukraine. Trump, you remember, he went from, I'm going to solve this with one phone call before the election. You remember he said that back in, I think, September. I can just pick up the phone and the war is going to end. And the Russians have told him that's not going to happen. Trump now says, I believe I can get this war over in 6 months. That's realistic. To have 6 months to work with the Russians, to put NATO in its place. See, people think that Trump's going to come in and prop NATO up. as a loaded gun pointing at Russia, telling the Russians, if you don't stop this conflict, NATO is going to intervene. That's not what Trump's going to do. Trump's going to come in and tell NATO, you're finished. You're done.
You're done. NATO, you're done. So he's all in on this. I want to believe this is true, but I want your critique on this, Garland, because you know Scott very well. And I want to know, is this a step to ending NATO? Is this going to happen?
Yeah, here's my thoughts. As I said, I think we're in a different time, right? I think there's more realistic. The tech bros are more realistic, right? First of all, they don't want war with China. Why? Because they all got infrastructure in China. They're building Teslas and stuff like that and iPhones and stuff in China. The last thing they want is a war with China to blow up their infrastructure. They're making a fortune on China. So they don't want to blow up China. That's out. One of the things, here's a breadcrumb. Here's what's a giveaway. Trump, just before I got elected, said, I want to have a meeting with Putin and Xi. And we need to have a great power meeting. Right. And Trump talked to Putin and Putin called Xi immediately and said, and now the readout said that Putin related what was said in the conversation with Trump or whatever. Right. OK, here's my point. Or whoever Trump's people might have talked with the Russians, whatever. Putin's like, here's what the Americans are saying. I have a feeling, and I've heard this, that perhaps what the Americans were saying with Putin was, talk to Xi for us. They don't trust us. Nobody trusts us. You don't talk to Xi. But Biden's gone. We need to have a talk. I think the tech bro power move now is the world's different. Why don't we talk to Putin, talk to Xi and say, look, we ain't going to screw around with you in your area of the woods. Xi, whatever, Taiwan, Straits of whatever the hell, they're yours. And our area will have the Panama Canal and Greenland. We'll expand in our region. We'll control our region. We won't screw with your region. We won't screw with yours. Hey, everybody's got to eat. Like the gangs of New York. You know what I mean? The five families, the Genovese and the Bonanos and blah, blah. Yep. Hey, we got this segment. You got that segment. Because let's face it, international politics is organized crime, right? Everybody takes their segment. If I'm going to come into your segment, I'm going to clear it through you first. NATO's the problem for the U.S. It's a pain in the neck. I think Trump hates the EU ruling elite, and clearly Musk hates their guts. The tech bros hate them. They hate these people. They don't like Zelensky. And so it's not just that they want out of NATO. I think they personally hate the Starmers and the von der Leyen's and people like that. And with Trump, if he hates your guts, that ain't going to work out well for you if he has the opportunity. What his one book, I think he wrote, Take Note of Those Who Betrayed You. Mm-hmm. And Starmer sent a bunch of people over. Yeah. Trump's coming. Him. He's the vindictive bastard. Yeah. And when it comes to Starmer, I'm glad of that. But my point being, so I think the only thing they want Europe for is to sell them something. Can we sell them liquefied natural gas or something? To hell with Europe. They're a pain in the neck. Go on and do your own thing, Europe. And interestingly now, there was this interesting kind of conversation going on between Trump people and the Russians, right? Because Trump comes out and now there's a discussion. Hey, we're going to cut their money. We're going to cut off Ukraine's arms. And then there's this discussion. Did they cut them off? Did they not cut them off? Nobody's really sure.
We're not sure.
But we're not sure. Okay. The Russians just came out, I think it was today, and said, this thing could be over in like 6 weeks. If you cut their munitions off, right? So they're playing off of that. You know what I mean? Mm. They're like, it's in a way, it's like a message to Trump. Trump, I know you want to be done with this thing, right? I know you want it over quick for a number of reasons. Yeah. Cut off their arms. And the Russians also came out today and say, we're putting together a team and we're ready to negotiate, and we'll negotiate with Zelensky, but he can't sign it because he's not legitimate. So the Russians are now, they know Trump wants out. And he's got bigger fish to fry in other areas. And so the Russians, reading the tea leaves from the Trump people, are now saying, look, you want out? Here's your options. We'll do this, we'll do that. We got a team ready. Cut their loot off. We're ready to talk, and we'll get this thing done in a few weeks. And they literally said it could be done in a couple of weeks, which I think is all good. I don't want people to die in a war, period. I'm opposed to any war anywhere, and I want to see it stop. So there's good things happening. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm to the left, far to the left of both of these parties. But You've probably heard me say this. And Frederick Douglass says, I will join any man for good and no man for evil. And if Trump does something that I approve of, I'm going to stand up and clap and say, good work, Trump. I hope he goes and talks to Kim Jong-un and gets peace on the peninsula of Korea. Good work, Trump. If he does something I don't like, I'll say, hey, that's screwy. I'll be the first guy out in the street marching against it. And I think that's logical way to address politics.
It's totally logical. We need more people doing that. And I cut that clip off early because I'm sick and tired of seeing the same stuff we see from anybody like you, me, Scott Ritter, anybody who's willing to go case by case with the people in charge, with Trump, and say, this is where he gets something right. This is where he gets something wrong. People aren't used to that. And that podcaster literally asks them, and this is why I cut the clip off, because I'm sick of this question. I know we're all sick of this question. So are you then a major Trump supporter, or why are you supporting him? Because I'm not how many times we have to say, we're talking about the thing he got right. Why do we have to qualify every time whether we are a supporter of someone or not? I'm sick of being a supporter of anyone. We're just using our critical thinking skills and looking at everything case by case. You give people credit when they deserve credit. You call them out when they don't. And that can be people you like and people you hate. In fact, it's more important to call people out that got something right that you hate. That's more important because that actually has more weight. But yeah, I'm just sick of that line of questions.
But these people are so irrational. I had a caller on my Pacifica show in DC say, I think you're a Trump supporter. I said, how long have you been listening to my show?
Yeah.
Oh, for years. I said, well, so then I don't support Trump. He says, yeah. I said, so you consider me a Trump supporter that doesn't actually support Trump? Yes. I said, okay, well, what else? Because I just felt like this. The listeners of this radio show all heard that. I don't have to comment on it. Anybody who heard that's going to go, a Trump supporter who doesn't support Trump, that's what's with this guy. But I just went on and asked him something else. I'm like, fine.
Yeah. 100%.
Look, what's the old saying? WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? Politics, isn't it?
I love it.